The record for the number of teams played for belongs to Mike Sillinger. He has 12. Now, he doesn't have anything to worry about from Alex Galchenyuk yet. Galchenyuk today signs with the Ottawa Senators to a 1-year, $1.05 million contract. And I thought, I should take a look at Alex Galchenyuk because it's fascinating what's happened to this kid over the last few years. Now, you'll notice I'm wearing a throwback, the old Senators practice jersey. Now, if you look really closely at the logo, you notice I don't care that it's gold now. The differences between this logo and the one they're currently going to use, it's minor. So every now and then people say, well, technically that's not the throwback because, or it's not technically the one they're going to use because the one they're using is technically a throwback because they changed the red to gold. All right. So Galchenyuk's drafted number 3 to a lot of hullabaloo because he's drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. Being drafted by a Canadian team in the top 3 means you're going to have a lot of pressure. He has that right out of the gate. And he gets a job that first year out of school. So 48 games, 9 goals, 18 assists, 27 points in the year after his draft. Plays pretty well. Plays 5 playoff games for them as well, a goal and 2 assists. He's 9th in Calder voting. And the thing with Galchenyuk is he's seen as a pretty darn good young player who's going to have great hands. And his second year, he does seem to be making a bit of a progression here. 65 games, 13 goals, 18 assists, 31 points. So the assists stay the same despite playing a bunch more games, but he gets 4 more goals. So it's not really a sophomore slump, technically. He plays 5 games in the playoffs again, has 2 goals and 1 assist to almost match his 1 goal and 2 assists from the year before. Year 3, things start to pick up for Galchenyuk. 80 games, 20 goals, 26 assists, 46 points. And in the playoffs, they play 12 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. You are rightfully excited if you're a Montreal fan looking at his progression because he's gone 9 goals, 13 goals, 20 goals. He appears to be on the right track. And it explodes for him in 2015-2016 after signing his first NHL contract coming out of his ELC. He signs a bridge contract, 2 years, $5.6 million in total. So at a time where we're starting to see a lot of really long-term contracts, Galchenyuk doesn't get one. So he gets that 2-year deal, $2.8 million a year, and it looks like a steal that first season. 82 games, 30 goals, 26 assists, 56 points. The 30 goals, huge. And this is why you'll hear people refer to Galchenyuk as a 30-goal scorer. And this is why Ottawa taking a flyer on him right now makes a lot of sense. It didn't cost them a lot of money, and if Galchenyuk finds anywhere near the form that he showed in 2015-2016, they're good. There are factors in the 2015-16 season, and I'll get into some of the weeds when it comes to his overall performance in the NHL, but that was a very good year. 2016-2017, he misses time with injury. 61 games, 17 goals, 27 assists, 44 points. So his points totals actually, if you looked at his points per game, were better than they were the year before. I made this argument a lot. I remember that summer, because it was only 3 years ago. I remember making the argument that he played 21 less games, he had 12 less points. He would have passed 56 points. The goals had taken a step back with 17, but that's still projected to over 20 goals. I didn't see the need to pile on, but there were people piling on with Galchenyuk at this point. There was a lot of discussion about his overall future. 2017-2018, he plays 82 games, 19 goals, 32 assists, 51 points. So now we're looking at his points total being down a bit. His goals, he finishes just short of 20. And this was after he had signed a major contract extension. July 5th of 2017, he had signed a 3-year extension worth $14.7 million in total. So it gives him a raise. And with 19 goals, you can have the debate as to whether or not he had played well enough to justify that raise the following season. So June 15th of 2018, this was a shocker to me. He's traded to Arizona for Max Domi. Max Domi was coming off of a down year where goals were hard to come by for Max Domi. And he'd been struggling. Galchenyuk's coming off of a year where he had 50 points. And it felt like he was part of whatever Montreal was building. And then they decided to jettison him, which was weird to me. So he goes to Arizona. He only plays in Arizona for 1 year. 72 games, 19 goals, 22 assists, 41 points. Again, he's just short of 20 goals. This has to be really frustrating if you're Galchenyuk. 17 goals here in 61 games. 19 goals and 72 here. 19 goals and 82 here. He is so close to being a 20-goal scorer consistently, where you could have said, hey, for 5 years in a row he scores at least 20, but because of injuries and because of this season he finishes one short in an 82-game schedule, he's only had 20 goals twice in his career. And that's just how that works. It's been a hockey thing for a long time. That if you don't reach that milestone, then you don't get to say it. So, in theory, he should be a 20-goal scorer every year. In theory, the Ottawa Senators have picked up a guy who could score 20 for them this year, even though he hasn't technically reached 20 goals in 5 years. So, at least it'll be 5 years this year, because it was 2015, 2016 was the last time he got there with his 30-goal season. Right? So June 29th, 2019, he was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins with Pierre-Olivier Joseph in exchange for Phil Kessel, Dane Burks, and a 2021 fourth. So they felt that Kessel would give them that experience, that Kessel would give them more productive offense than Galchenyuk did. It was a weird trade for me because keep in mind that year Arizona didn't have a single 20-goal scorer. Galchenyuk with 19 goals in 72 games, that's not that far off. And again, I thought Galchenyuk played well enough, but, here he was going to Pittsburgh. And all the talk of him going to Pittsburgh was, well, now he's going to play with either Crosby or Malkin. He's going to get back to at least 20 goals. Because again, if you don't factor in this season, right, because you can't, because that'll be telling the future. 19, 17, 30, 20. And this is you're going to play with Crosby and Malkin. It's the same thing people are saying right now about Kasperi Kapanen. He will play with these guys, so clearly his numbers are going to go through the roof. It is an assumption. And I remember in Vancouver, we would hear that about, this guy's going to play with the Sedins. His numbers are going to go through the roof. And sometimes they did. Often they didn't. So Galchenyuk gets to Pittsburgh, and it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit right from the beginning. 45 games, he scores a grand total of 5 goals. Now, this is a contract year. Another argument that he was going to have a big year was, hey, he's playing with Crosby or Malkin, and it's a contract year for him. 12 assists to go with those 5 goals, 17 points. He is traded February 10th of 2020 to the Minnesota Wild. He is traded with Kalen Addison and a first-round draft pick, which it was Pittsburgh's choice between 2020 or 2021. They decided 2021 they'd keep this year's draft pick. And he's traded for Jason Zucker. Zucker is that goal scorer that Pittsburgh was envisioning Galchenyuk was going to be. Zucker is going to play on a wing with Crosby or Malkin the way Galchenyuk was envisioned to be. And it's a kick in the teeth. So I kind of thought, Galchenyuk should have kind of a I'm going to prove myself moment here for Minnesota because he knows it's his contract year. Now he's with his 4th team in 3 years. So we should see some kind of, he played 14 games, had 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. And then the big fear I had was that there had been rumors dating back for about a year that Jim Benning was really high on Galchenyuk and might throw money at him to get him into Vancouver. And, he could bounce back for Ottawa, but does he? In the return to hockey, he plays 4 games for Minnesota against Vancouver, has a grand total of 0 points. So today he signs a 1-year, $1.05 million contract to become an Ottawa Senator to try to redeem what was once a really, really promising career. And it wasn't that long ago that he had a very promising career. So for Ottawa, there's no risk to this. Worst case scenario, he doesn't play well. They waive him. They send him to the minors. And they get the cap forgiveness of his $1.05 million in total. Because when you send a guy to the minors, it is $700,000, which is the league minimum, plus $375,000 that you get forgiven under the cap. And that's, to the limit of their contract. So it's not like they'd send them down and get extra cap space, but they would get written off the entire contract. So there is no risk to the Ottawa Senators. There's no risk to any team that's signing players right now for less than $1.05 million, unless you're the owner and you got to pay the money. But Galchenyuk signing there is interesting. So I wanted to look at some other stats. In his career, Galchenyuk's put up 408 hits. There's definitely enough hitting in his game that if he wanted to reinvent himself, now's a really good time. And his face-offs in his career, if Ottawa decides, hey, let's try him at center, 882 wins in the face-off circle, 992 losses. So his face-offs when he's been tried at center, middling results to poor results. His ice time in Montreal was 15 minutes and 30 seconds on average. In Arizona, that went up to 15 minutes and 44 seconds. It dropped in Pittsburgh to 14 minutes and 56 seconds, which will not explain why he only had the 5 goals. In Minnesota, he only played 11 minutes and 29 seconds per game. But again, the fact this is trending downwards is why he got $1.05 million rather than the big money. 41 power play goals in his career. He had 9 power play goals in both 2017-2018 and 2018-2019, and that's after he had 9 in 2015-2016. He's decent on the power play, and for Ottawa, decent on the power play is okay with them. Their power play this year was awful. It was. I remember how many reviews I was doing of Ottawa games. It was Ottawa goes to the power play and they don't score because their power play sucks. And it was something with Ottawa. I did it at times with Dallas. There were a few teams I did it with, but Ottawa, it was kind of a running thing. So if he's able to put in a few on the power play, that would be very helpful to the Ottawa Senators. He may get first unit power play time just to try to get that kicked into gear. He has no shorthanded goals in his career. He's not known for playing a man short. Maybe DJ Smith sees something in his game and says, we'll try him shorthanded as well. His plus minus, if you buy into this stat, minus 34 over his time in Montreal, minus 19 in the one season in Arizona, plus 2 during his time in Pittsburgh, and then in Minnesota, a minus 7. Now, where this is interesting is he only plays 14 games in Minnesota. He's not playing a lot of time. The fact he's a minus 7 in 14 games when he's not getting a lot of ice time tells you either he had bad matchups or he was hurting the team. So either he's matched up against guys that are just superior, or he and his line could have been actively hurting the team during points there. Because Minnesota was not a bad team during that 14-game period that he was there. So it's not the excuse you can use with Montreal that they're mediocre during a lot of the time he's there. Arizona was poor during a lot of the time he's there. No, Minnesota wasn't that bad, and so it's an interesting number. 201 career penalty minutes, so he's not a guy that spends a ton of time in the box, doesn't take a ton of dumb penalties. 21 game-winning goals in his career, 6 of them in 2016-2017. So that's interesting that 6 out of his 17 goals that year were game winners. 250 block shots in his career. Again, if he does decide to kind of reinvent himself a little bit, you could bring up the block shots, you could bring up your hits a little bit, and he could become a little better as a defensive forward if, in fact, the offense is not able to return. 8 goals in 59 games is problematic. And it during a contract year, it's disastrous because now you're not going to find anybody, especially in this economy right now, who's going to say, oh yeah, we're going to waste $3-4 million cap space in this guy. You'll find a team that'll take $1 million and say, let's see what you can do. So what can he do? Again, for Ottawa, it's a no-brainer of a pickup. Ottawa's not expected to be a playoff team this year. There's no pressure on them. For Galchenyuk, it might be the first time in his career he hasn't had pressure. He had the pressure of being Montreal's next one when he was first drafted. And this isn't just a Montreal thing either. This is in every Canadian city. When you're drafted early, you are the next one. You're it. And so the city, everybody knows who you are, and they micromanage every single shift you take. He went to Arizona. The expectation was he'd be a goal scorer for them. And he kind of sort of was, but then they traded him to Pittsburgh, where he was expected to kick in on one of the top 2 lines. It didn't work. And then he ended up in Minnesota, where there was a lot less expectation. There was a lot less ice time. So we'll see where he ends up playing in Ottawa. So does he hit the third line in Ottawa, or do they give him a shot at top 6 minutes? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I think this is a fascinating career of a guy who's clearly become a journeyman at this point in his career. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.